We're going to be talking with Jack Connor. He is the individual behind the Cosmic Road YouTube channel, and he's been doing a lot of great work since 2017, I believe. He'll go into more detail on that in a little bit later. But just right out of the gate, I want to give Jack, excuse me, the opportunity to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing books.
Yeah, well, I've been writing novels since I was 11 years old. Believe it or not, that's when I first started writing. And although I didn't actually complete a novel until I was about 21 or 22, and I began that novel. Actually, it's a now four-part epic. I began when I was 16, and it was a horror action novel called The Living Night. And but yeah, I've been writing, all my life. It was my life's dream to become a writer, and many years passed before I was able to make a living writing, but it happened, and yeah. So that's. Did you have any questions specifically about my books, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've kind of been toying around with this concept known as the muse. I'm not sure if you're familiar with kind of the idea of almost something outside of our own consciousness or psyche that provides thoughts and ideas to humans. So I was just curious if you could maybe tell us a little bit about how you come up with your concepts and if you've ever experienced anything that you might consider to be akin to something like the muse, where, almost like a download or anything like that, where you have gotten information that you've then utilized within your books. Ultimately, just kind of want to understand how you come up with your premises and your character development.
Yeah, no, because I have a friend that asks me this all the time, and he's very intrigued by this as well. He and I've done research as well to indicate that a lot of artists and creatives sometimes can tap into something that they are indeed seeming to channel, and that does seem to be a thing that happens sometimes. Now, I've never been aware of that happening with my own writing. I mean, I will get in the zone of writing, but I think of that as more of a mental zone and less of a connective zone. But who knows? Who knows? They say we're always connected, and your intuition and so on. That is the connection. So could the zone that I get in be part of that? Absolutely. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like I'm the one creating. And, it is my own creative impulses, things that I get inspired by, stories that I want to tell, characters that I want to write about. That seems to be driving me in my creative urge. But is there something more than that going on? There absolutely could be. I just don't know.
That's certainly fair. I think that's part of, why we have these topics is try to dig into where these kind of things come from. Something that I also would kind of be interested in discussing is, what do you find to be the most difficult part of your writing process?
Forcing myself to sit in the chair and write. Yeah, call that butt in the chair time. Yeah, you have to spend the butt in the chair time. And also because I'm not like a James Patterson or somebody that can just crank stuff out commercially. Unfortunately, I'm an artist, and that just sounds so silly. I'm an artist, but that's how I write. That's how I relate to writing, is very creatively. And if I'm not inspired, I'm not writing. Or if I do write, I'm not going to be happy with the result. It's going to feel like a product to me. And I don't want to write product. I want to write art. I want to, get my art out there. And that's what's important to me. And so yeah.
Right on, man. You mentioned inspiration. I'm curious, where do you find that inspiration?
Oh well, all over your books I'm reading, movies I'm watching. I will intentionally seek out certain books to get inspired by certain things. And sometimes when I'm writing a book, I will want a specific kind of inspiration. Like I'll want to read a book that has really great atmosphere. And I will read a writer that I know writes great atmosphere so I can get in that mindset so that I can write that. It's not like I'm stealing anything from their atmosphere, but just so I can get in the mindset of visualization and atmosphere. And other times, I'll be just reading a book that I'm reading for fun, and I will see something that triggers something. And yeah, it's a complicated process, the creative impulse. But yeah, you just get inspired by stuff, and then you get inspired by something else, and you get inspired by something else, and then you kind of start thinking of ways to cobble it all together. And or sometimes I'll just think, oh, what do I want to write that's really cool? I want to write about something with the Zeppelins and zombies and mad scientists, and how do I make this into a cohesive whole? And then I think of a way. And or I want to write dragons and prince, but it's got to be, it can't just be run of the mill fantasy. It's got to have a heart. It's got to have, even a darkness that I can relate to, and that I can, some meat to it, that I can sink my teeth into and write. And so, it's just a complicated process, and different books get inspired by different things. And yeah, so I don't know if that answered the question, but there you go.
No, man, anything is always valuable to hear. So you mentioned many books. What is coming down the pipeline for you? What's in store for people that are interested in the future?
Yeah, well, I just wrote the first three novels of a new series that might be called Cosmic Road. I don't know. It's because it actually works for that novel. It is the Cosmic Road. So and that is a kind of a trippy sci-fi action series that has a few elements of the Inkle. If you've ever heard of the Inkle by Jodorowsky and Mobius. No. Well, anyway, it's what inspired The Fifth Element. You're probably familiar with The Fifth Element.
Yeah, that's one of the best sci-fis, at least in my
Right,
opinion.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that was inspired by the Inkle. And the
Okay.
Inkle is just this brilliant graphic novel. In fact, it's now a series of graphic novels. Illustrated the first one, the Inkle, illustrated by the legendary Mobius, and written by Jodorowsky. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but great writer, love him. And and it's got other parts of like Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, and some other elements as well. And it's yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. I'm having the artwork done for volume one right now. So
Killer. Well,
hopefully that will be coming out in the near future.
right on, man. Well, you'll certainly keep us posted. And is that Inkel? Inkle?
Yeah, Incal. The
CAL. All
the
right, right
Inkle.
on.
The Inkle
Cool.
or the Dark Inkle. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I'm gonna got that written down here. So you just alluded to something that I want to jump into next, which is this Cosmic Road, right? So could you tell us how you started this channel and why you started this channel?
Yeah, well, part of the reason why I write is because I believe, long time ago, back when I didn't believe, actually, it wasn't even that long ago, because I've only been into UFOs since about 2017, when those three videos came out. And that's when I started researching this stuff. And I was like, whoa, those three videos. And you got Lou Elizondo up there, and you've got A-Tip. Could this possibly be real? So I've got to investigate this. I don't have a day job. I have an obsessive personality. I've got to get to the bottom of this. And so that's what started that. But before that, when I was a wee lad and I didn't believe in, UFOs or spirituality, total atheist all my life, I wanted to write about the fantastic, to bring it into the world, because I didn't believe in the fantastic. And now I do believe in the fantastic. And actually, that's made writing harder. So thank you, UFOs and spirituality. But yeah, so that's there you go.
Awesome, man. Have you had any personal experiences with anything kind of surreal or
Oh yeah.
paranormal per se?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's so cool because I didn't have any experience with any of this stuff pre 2017. And then I began my research, and my research led me to become an experiencer. And, I'm not like a high level experiencer like a Chris Bledsoe or somebody like that, but I've had some pretty cool experiences, man. And I'm so happy about that. And but yeah, it was my research that led me to both UFO and more mystical experiences. And do you want to know about any of those? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to maybe just hear an example of that. And then I also want to just chat on, because I've had some similar stuff myself. And I'd like to touch on, why do you think that is, that it's almost like once your consciousness becomes aware of these certain phenomenon that you're actually able to perceive them. So I'd love to kind of jump into that too, but maybe you could just give us one example. I know you've kind of spoken about this on other platforms as well.
Yeah, well, I couldn't give just one example, but I can give like, a few of them. Yeah,
Certainly.
yeah, I had I saw my mystical UFO, what I call my Jesus ayahuasca UFO. And I've talked about that before several times. But if you want me to tell it again, I'll tell it again.
Yeah,
And,
do you mind?
but then before that, I had a Kundalini awakening, if you know what that is, which
Yep.
was, and I don't mean that in the general sense of the word. I mean that in the specific Hindu sense of the word. Because some people use that as a general any enlightenment modality. And, while all of those are totally valid, but there is something very specific called a Kundalini awakening that is a Hindu, more or less. There's a few other traditions that do practice that do carry that on. Anyway, I think the Sikhs or the Sheiks, I can never pronounce that. I think the Buddhists also have a Kundalini tradition.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the whole thing. But yeah, so I had a Kundalini awakening, which was just amazing. It was insane. I had a healing of a crippling chronic physical condition. It was a birth defect at an ayahuasca ceremony that changed my life. I've had, various other mystical experiences and, even paranormal experiences. And it began um, yeah, as I started to investigate this, as my research into UFOs led me to the mystical and to the, consciousness based, other dimensional, however you want to refer to it. Uh, it started to open my mind to it, and I began to try to experience it because, like I say, I was an atheist. I was a materialist, a hard materialist, and didn't believe in anything woo-woo or spiritual in any way. And before that, I didn't believe in UFOs. But uh, when I got to Skinwalker Ranch in my research, and there's a whole lot of paranormal stuff associated with that. That opened my mind to the possibilities of the paranormal. The government spending taxpayer money to investigate the paranormal. In addition to UFOs, I thought it was really interesting, and so I began researching the paranormal. And my research into UFOs had been very exhaustive and extensive and continues to be. And I researched the paranormal with the same energy. And I was really shocked to find there was some there. My research was pretty solid. I couldn't get over it. Could there actually be this stuff going on? And so I co-founded a ghost hunting team and started doing some ghost hunting. Lucked into an amazing haunted house. Lots of great stuff in that house. I mean, I wouldn't want to live in that house, but
This is
great,
true.
great. But yeah, it was some great stuff there. At the time, my theory was that the paranormal stuff was like alien technology, like other dimensional technology. And there couldn't really be any paranormal or ghosty stuff because none of that existed. Of course, yeah, I was an atheist, right? And but then as I began to experience it, I was like, whoa, that doesn't seem like it's alien. So I went over to Google and I typed in, do we have souls? What's Google going to say? Do we have souls? And what popped up was near-death experiences. So then I began researching near-death experiences again with the same exhaustive energy as I had been able to do for UFOs and paranormal. And I continue to research near-death experiences. They continue to be super fascinating. Also, in opening my mind up to that, to the other dimensions and the other consciousness realms, and what consciousness is. As I opened up to that, I started having experiences. One of my ghost hunting buddies was a Reiki master, And my research into psi abilities had led me to see that there was some there with Reiki, or at least to be curious and open to it. So I let her do Reiki on me. And I was blown away because I felt the energy. And so yeah, it was, I mean, I felt the force, the chi, the ki, the prana, the vril.
The
I felt
Jedi
the what?
power.
Did the Jedi power. That's right, man. I
Yeah.
felt it. And I just blown away because I could feel the energy. And then I began having my own spiritual and mystical experiences, esoteric experiences, independent of ghost hunting or anything else. I had a whole series of mystical experiences. And like in a port, if you know what that is, from a spirit, where a loved one left me something, departed loved one, and visits from loved ones, and very various other things. I had a ghost cat. I had a ghost cat for about a year. That was interesting. And Yeah, and then the Kundalini, and the healing, and the UFO, the Jesus ayahuasca UFO, sober when I saw the UFO, and various other experiences. Some cool stuff, man. Some cool stuff that you can experience once you open yourself to it. And as I sought it out, it met me halfway, and my life has been forever changed.
Can we dig into that a bit more? So you mentioned this kind of process of trying to pursue knowledge and seeking to understand more about these experiences and this, for lack of a better word, phenomenon that seems to be occurring, which has kind of multiple prongs to it, perhaps like the alien prong, the paranormal prong, there's the technology prong, maybe all of them kind of brought together through that consciousness perspective of things. But I'm curious, do you have any protocols or processes that you implement in your daily life that you feel like allow you to perhaps gain a little bit of a closer connection to these sorts of things?
Well, okay, I'll tell you, because my experiences have decreased since leaving Reiki class. Because, once I felt this mystical energy, I had to learn it. And so when I moved, at first I didn't realize I wanted to learn it. We moved, and I went to a local Reiki practitioner, and she was amazing. The first time I sat down with her, I didn't feel the energy, but she was able to identify every medical issue I had ever had throughout the entire course of my life. Broken toe when I was a kid, broken finger, just all my stuff. She was able to identify every single one. I thought, well, this is amazing. I have to learn this. And so she taught a class. So I took a year and a half class where we met for 3.5 hours every week. And, the small group of us, we would, learn about this stuff, and we would do various experiments, and we would meditate. And it was a very spiritual, very cool atmosphere. And the experiences that I had already begun having really increased during that time. Really, so as far as protocols go, I think that was really key for me. That locked it in. Well, it didn't lock it in because it faded as soon as I stopped going to class. I still continued having some experiences, but it's been a couple of months, really. I
Right.
may have had one the other day, but I was kind of nebulous. So, but yeah, I had just a whole series of events during that year and a half, including my Kundalini awakening, my healing, and the UFO.
Right.
And but since then, I have had some other stuff. Since leaving class, I had my first out of body experience, which was pretty cool. And So yeah, and some other stuff. So
Were you able to maintain that, or once you realized where you kind of sucked back into your body?
okay, so a lot of my experiences, James, have been gifted to me. Like, I didn't like achieve them through Zen meditation or whatever. They were gifts of spirit guides or whatever agencies are working with me, and I know that they are. Otherwise I wouldn't be having these experiences.
Right.
So yeah, because I didn't do it. But So my out of body experience was another gift. So it was really weird because it was a dream within a dream, which I've never had before. And it was very vivid. I remember, it just felt like I awoke in the middle of meditation. And it was this, I wasn't aware that I was dreaming within a dream or whatever was going on. I was in this meditative state, and all I felt this agency outside of me, maybe a guide and helping me. And all of a sudden, I started to vibrate and to shake, kind of like that. And it was, I felt that I was vibrating out of my body. And I was so excited because I'd been really wanting an out of body experience for so long. And I knew that's what was about to happen. And because I've had a lot of, I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but I've had some really cool experiences. But most of them aren't visual. Only very few of them have been visual in any way, like the UFO, and the ghost cat and a couple others. But this was, really exciting to me because I was like, oh boy, finally I'm going to go to some other dimensions and I'm going to, shake the dust off this old place and go have some fun, right? And get to see some beings in other dimensions and have some adventures. This is gonna be awesome. So I vibrate out of my body with the help of this guide, this helper, whoever is helping me, and I'm in blackness. I'm in total blackness. I get out, I'm out of my body. I'm so excited. It's all black. It's all black. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Sorry, I should curse. Oh, what the heck? What the heck? Um, uh, you know, okay, where am I? What's going on? It's all black. And later when I came back, I realized that it was probably what they call the velvet void or the velvet darkness, or the loading chamber of reality. That's what a near death
The
experience.
waiting room.
Yeah. Near death experiencers describe this repeatedly, but I wasn't thinking that at the time. I was like, okay, I'm out of my body. What next? Guide, you were here a minute ago. Where are you? Nothing's really going on. Then off in the distance, I see kind of a scary face, kind of a scary reptilian face, way off in the distance. And I'm looking at it, looking to see if it's aware of me or if but then I realize it's static. It's not moving. It's not staring at me. It's probably just a projection of my fear and my discomfort at this point. I'm in this black space and nothing is happening, and I'm getting a little creeped out. And that's just a projection of my fear. And so then that loses any power over me, but I'm still in this blackness and nothing is happening. And I just got unnerved. Now I would have done it totally different. I would have just chilled out and I would have realized where I was. And then I would have tried to invite beings in, or try to manifest where I wanted to go. If it's the loading chamber, you can load from the loading chamber.
Right.
Right. So that's what I would have done now. But at the time, I was just kind of creeped out, and I woke myself up within the dream, or within the dream. Yeah. So I woke up into a dream that I don't remember, and because it was just a regular dream.
Right.
Uh, and it, eventually I woke up for real, and but yeah, so but it was very vivid, the experience, even though there were no visuals, it was very vivid. It was, to my satisfaction, not in any way a dream, um, but it was cool.
Yeah, there's, certain things like this may not be possible to be encompassed using the sounds that we make with our voices. And a lot of this has to do with an intuition or a knowing of what that experience was. And that's really, a personal experience for you, but I really appreciate you sharing that with
Are you an
folks.
out of body experiencer yourself?
I have not been able to successfully do that, but I'm actually sort of every week I have a 2 hour morning once a week where I try to kind of meditate and sort of promote those types of experiences. But I haven't had anything that's been successful yet.
Well, if you
But
figure it out, let me know, man.
yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah, there's certainly some protocols, but I haven't quite been able to, master them. There's people like there's the Monroe Institute, for example, which kind of goes into some similar types of topics.
Yeah,
But
I've
it's
got the
actually
gateway process, but I haven't gone through it all yet.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So I've been kind of interested in pursuing that as well. It's really fascinating that you brought up the dreams because one of the things that I wanted to touch on was your perspective on dreaming and also principally if you've maybe predominantly as a child had any sort of reoccurring dreams that you can recall. I know for me, I've had a lot of very similar themed or almost exactly the same reoccurring dreams that later on in life manifested themselves in ways that, at least for me subjectively, pointed directly to, okay, that was, I don't know how that connection was made, but there was something about that dream I kept having about flying or about getting kidnapped, whatever it is, that ultimately led to some actual experience in real life, you know? So I'd just love to maybe take a moment to kind of get your perspective on dreaming for you.
Yeah, no, great question, man. Because all right, so when I was a kid, apparently I was kind of tapped into this stuff. And then it faded, or okay, so I remember like when I was like 7, 8 years old, I could feel the energy in my hands. I put it on parts of my body and I could feel the energy. And that was, what I now think of as the Reiki energy, although there's, of course, many different modalities of hands-on healing. It's just this innate ability that we all have, this energy, and I was able to feel it and tap into it. And but nobody else was talking about it. Nobody, and in my world was talking about it. And so I just assumed that I was imagining it, and it went away.
Right.
I also had a series of extremely vivid dreams that I thought were real, of flying, and not just flying, but okay. So I would have, I would be in this beautiful place in this like, wooded setting, and I would have my guides, I guess, somebody was talking to me behind me, guiding me, teaching me how to fly. And I would fly and I would float. I would hover above the ground and I would float over the trees. And I could never quite understand what they were saying, but they were telling me how to do it and I would be able to do it.
Right.
And so that was so vivid. I would go to school, the next day. I was like, "Oh, hey, Sally, how was your flying?" 'Cause I thought everybody was doing this, and nobody was doing this. It was clear that I was, if I had really talked about this openly, they would have thought I was crazy. So I didn't talk about it, and much like the energy went away, but the dreams continued, maybe lesser, but they continued, and I still have them. And they may there may be some more stuff there, but I don't want to get into that. But yeah, there's a level, there's a threshold. But when I started to do research into near-death experiences, recently in the last few years, that's something that I found was that they were guided into these realms by beings that were behind them, that were guiding them, but they never had the urge to look behind them to see who it was,
Right.
exactly like in my dreams. And so then that made me remember my old dreams. And again, I still periodically have similar dreams, although without the guides, but it was still flying dreams.
Right.
And so yeah, so I think something was going on there. I think somebody was working with me at an early age. I don't know if they continued working with me or if they just kind of gave up, which is totally possible. I was pretty hard-headed, so.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's just you because it seems to me like we don't just hear these stories a little bit, but we hear a lot of these kinds of stories, particularly among children, right? And so it makes me kind of wonder if there might be some latent connection that we have as humans that through our culture, we're kind of desensitized to sensing. For example, if you just think back, I mean, most of human history, we have not been living in this kind of a paradigm of technology being king, where pretty much every other civilization has believed in gods and demigods and all various sorts of manifestations of, the paranormal, et cetera, or the celestial or the angelic, et cetera. But yeah, I kind of feel like we are just living in a culture that promotes ignoring and shoving down that kind of stuff in pursuit of materialism and things like that. Is there anything you might want to say to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ever since I've realized this stuff was real and that I could have been living my life very differently, if people had been, when I was 7 or 8 years old, told me that, yeah, the energy is real, man, and this is how you can use it. Here, we'll go to this class and you can learn how to heal with your hands and to do and to have magical abilities. Here, oh, you're having the flying dreams. Well, beings are working with you, teaching you how to fly, at least out of body or something.
Right.
Yes, we can go send you to this class and teach you more about that, or get you send you to this meditation class and get you in touch with your guides, see what's going on there. Yeah, we all have these innate abilities, James. It's something like walking or talking. And just like walking or talking, we should be taught how to do this stuff at an early age. This should be something that we have access to from an early age because this is just innate in all of us, this connection, these abilities. And it's, whether it's remote viewing, well, whatever it is. And maybe some people are stronger with some things than other things. But yeah, we should have mystery schools if you know what that is.
Yeah, the
And
Eleusinian mysteries.
yeah, we should exactly. And the Essenes, they were apparently teaching their kids how to meditate when they were like 3 years old.
Wow.
So well, why can't we do that?
Right.
This is an innate ability, an innate connection we all have, but we're told it doesn't exist. And so in many people like me, it fades. And I was able to rediscover some of it. But so many people probably aren't.
Right.
Um, Very frustrating.
Yeah, no, it can be. And I think just like some people are stronger just by their nature than others, some people may have stronger connections to these types of things as well. But that doesn't mean that, you can't still lift a small weight, right? And experience that for yourself. So I think that's important to note. One thing that I'd like to move into is, so we've kind of touched on a lot of sort of the more esoteric and consciousness based types of perspectives upon these types of topics. But also, I think that at the same time, there may be technologies that are capable of generating these types of things, through just my only analog to think of right now is something like electricity, right? So using the technologies that we've discovered since the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution. And I'd like to transition into talking a little bit about what's been going on down in Peru. I know that you've spoken a lot about this, the research of Timothy Alvarino and his discussions with the villagers in Peru who have been experiencing what they kind of consider or they call to be the face peeler phenomenon. And so I just wanted to see if you could maybe kind of just briefly give us a quick recap about what exactly I'm speaking to here, and then kind of maybe your perspective on what that could be. Because I kind of think that we see humans potentially utilizing technologies to manipulate whether it be gravity or people's conscious experience. And those two things are kind of a different side of the coin of what we were just discussing. So would you mind kind of going into a little bit about that
Well, sure. Well,
Peruvian
just
story?
first of all, the technology and the mystical stuff, they're all, I call it the greater phenomenon, as in the UFO phenomenon is but one subset of a much larger phenomenon,
Right.
but it's not even a distinct subset. It's all baked in with the other stuff. 1/3 of all alien abductees are near-death experiencers.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. I didn't know
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. And it goes on and on and on. The paranormal crossover or the consciousness crossover with UFOs goes on and on and on. So yeah, it's all baked in together. It's all part of one bigger picture that I call the greater phenomenon.
Okay.
Now, as far as what's going on in Peru, there's the rural villages and in one larger town in Peru and in Brazil, where the residents are being attacked by these beings that may or may not be human. They're wearing this full, futuristic armor with a long conical head. So, I've talked a lot about the elongated skull beings on the channel. And I think the elongated skull beings, just like the Nazca mummy beings, are very fascinating. They were non-humans or human hybrids working with the peoples of the time, 1,000 to 7,000 years ago. So are the face peelers, the elongated skull beings? Probably not. I lean toward humans with that stuff in their helmets technology. But they do have these elongated helmets, which is interesting. So who knows what's going on there? But I think those are probably humans. They probably are some subset or rival group from what I call the UFO control group, whoever is, and I think it's a bunch of different factions and groups and nations, all under one big umbrella that I call the control group, that are covertly managing the UFO issue,
Right.
on behalf of the U.S. and other governments. And they've been doing crash retrievals and reverse engineering, and it goes much deeper than that, seemingly. And they've got their own stuff. They've got their own UFOs. They've got all sorts of fancy technology that they could be employing in places like Peru, because the residents that are being attacked, and some of them apparently having their faces peeled and they are being killed,
Right.
this very alarming phenomenon. Those people are seeing UFOs. Now they're seeing the guys in the silver armor on little hoverboards like the Green Goblin and Spider-Man.
Yeah. Right.
Right, yeah, right. I mean,
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
sounds charming until they peel your face, and then
Yep.
that's less charming. Yeah. But so they'll shoot at them, and then they'll shoot off back to their UFO, and their UFO will zoom away. So are those humans with alien technology that's been stolen or reverse engineered or gifted even? Some sort of offshoot or splinter group of the UFO control group, or is that some sort of group of non-humans? And you can draw the parallel to missing 411,
Right.
which is not exactly the same thing, but there's definitely some parallels there. People and remote places being attacked by apparently beings with alien technology and killed.
Right.
So there's definite parallels there. It's that one, the missing 411, we actually know less about, even though it's been going on for longer. Um, yeah, because they don't leave the bodies in good enough condition to really
Okay.
study. So
Right. Yeah, that's pretty interesting stuff. I know that there's a lot that's been kind of researched about what's going on in Peru, and there's actually people who've gone down there and spoken directly with the villagers.
yeah,
So, you
Timothy
don't.
Alberino, God bless him, good for him.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's, if people are interested in this, definitely take a look at some of that work. There's a lot to dig into there. One thing that, I started toss around is how much of what we are being told about these kinds of topics is intentional disinformation, and how much of it is just, so incredible that it seems like intentional disinformation. And there's a lot of gray area between those two things. So I was just wondering, as somebody who's beginning to get into this space as a public figure myself, how do you kind of sift through the information that you are given and learn about, and how do you kind of decide what is going to be something that you're going to put more credence towards than perhaps a different story?
Great question. There is a lot of BS out there, a lot of disinformation, a lot of misdirects, a lot of red herrings, and people hoaxing stuff and people BSing stuff. It's a sea of BS out there, man. So bring your waders. But there's also a lot of truth out there, and I think that in large part the control group is very happy for us to muddy the waters ourselves. We make it fringy enough just
Right,
because the subject is fringy. I mean, we're talking about face peelers and out of body experiences, and those
right,
are real things. What they are, what face peelers are, I have no idea. But there's real stuff that is just so fringy that when you talk about it to the mainstream, they just walk away. So I think that just the crazy aspect of the phenomenon itself really kind of does the controller group's job for them. That's why Steve Bissett and people like that just want to focus on the nuts and bolts stuff, what's going on in Congress. They don't want to go there because they understand that it discredits the whole field by just talking about what's actually going on in the field. But for my part, I want to understand what the hell is happening.
right,
Yeah, I'm trying to make sense out of all of this. And so I'm, very happy to talk about it and get other people's ideas about what might actually be going on. So that's what I do is I try to make sense of it, but at the same time, I love showing the evidence for it. I mean,
right.
when we got people like David Grush out there, beating the drum, and Lou Elizondo, we've got bodies. We've got alien bodies in Nazca, man. or whatever they are, hybrids,
Right.
whatever they are. And, so I love showing the evidence, but I also love trying to figure it out. But as far as disinformation goes, you have to look at, the source. Who do you find credible? Who do you not find credible? There's, yeah, there's some BS out there. There's some BS.
Right.
I don't want to tarnish anybody, but, I just follow my sniffer and, I've come to trust, my research. It did lead me to some cool stuff. So I think anyway, uh,
No,
I'm,
man, I
I'm
think,
still working on making my sniffer as good as it can be. But
yeah.
it's got me here.
Fantastic. One thing that I heard that was really sat really well with me was this concept of the knowledge triangle. I'm not sure if you've heard of this before, but it's the idea that you have on one corner you have information, at the top you have knowledge, and at the bottom other corner you have experience. So we're gaining all this knowledge, all this information, just meaningless information. But then we're cross-referencing it, curating the things that coincide with other pieces of information and bubbling that up to the knowledge, which we then use to go get experience, right? Interviewing people, getting on the ground, whatever it may be, which we then use to gain more information. And it kind of cycles like that. So I'm not sure how I actually can put that into practice, but as a concept, I think that that's kind of the way that I'm trying to approach this. And it sounds like you're doing the same.
Yeah, I just follow my gut, what feels real to me.
Right on, man. So you actually mentioned Steve Bissett, and I wanted to ask you. So obviously, I think that there is the for the uninitiated, the clear things that you can hold on to are those nuts and bolts, right? It's the UFO crash retrieval stories, it's the documentation, it's signed letters from Harry Truman asking for access to recovered discs from Germany, et cetera. But on the other end of that coin is this more consciousness and spirituality based type of stuff. And I know that there's obviously been a report that was recently released, the Arrow report, which really kind of poo-pooed a lot of the history that this topic has discovered over the last 80 or so years, and frankly, a lot longer than that. But I wanted to just briefly, I want to respect your time. We have about 12 minutes together here. So just could you kind of walk us through your perspective with regards to what can the actual average citizen do to try to make an impact in this field? Because we have, at least from my opinion, and I'll just speak for myself, I don't know that holding another hearing is going to really make the moves in the zeitgeist that we need for people to really, quote unquote, experience full big D disclosure. But at the same time, I feel like the grassroots movements of humans in community with one another, practicing whether it be Reiki or meditation, et cetera, and actually just cutting out the middleman, going straight to whatever the source is. Could you speak to us a little bit about how individuals can make an impact and what you see being kind of the future of the governmental side of this?
Okay, well, so that was a bit. Hang on, I'm trying to wrap my head around this question. Do you want me to focus more on the consciousness and spiritual stuff, or do you want to talk about Arrow and the report?
So I think it's just what can the average everyday citizen who's watching this or listening to this do to make an impact in this space from either perspective?
Okay, well, all right. So I mean, there's a lot to tackle there, right? You know,
It's a big question.
yeah, yeah, okay. Well, thanks for the open-ended question. But so I guess you have to research. You have to satisfy yourself that the phenomenon exists, first of all. And, for me, that took a lot of research. I was a skeptic. I didn't believe in any of this crazy nonsense until 2017. And then I, had the free time and the passion to pursue it. And I just explored every rabbit hole there was. And, eventually I realized that there was enough there to realize that this was real, and then I could investigate each rabbit hole as it came. So you just pace yourself, do what feels right to you as far as satisfying yourself as that this is real. Then if you want to contribute to disclosure and stuff, you could start a channel. You could be a UFO lobbyist like Steve Bissett. You could go out there and practice C5, where you're interacting with the phenomenon directly. And if you're so moved and if the phenomenon wants you to, you could get it on video. You might want to ask permission first, or maybe not. But there's all sorts of ways that you can pursue this stuff, whether it's trying to interact with the phenomenon directly through, CE5 or Reiki or ghost hunting, because it's all connected in my book.
Right.
Or do what I did and just do all of it, and whatever else besides. And so you can try to interact with this stuff that's out there directly if you're not already. You can write books about it. I'm not, a writer in that way. I don't write nonfiction. But there's all sorts of things that you can do. You can write letters to your Congress people, pressuring them to further action. We need a select committee, guys. I think a select committee could be huge. A UAP
Church
select.
style committee,
Let's
right?
do it. Let's make it
Yeah.
happen. Let's make it happen. So I mean, there's just so much you can do. Just whatever grabs you.
Right. It's also, it's pretty simple just to contact your representative in Congress and just express that this is something of interest to you. That's something that I've done, and I would encourage others to do that as well. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. So given that we're just kind of wrapping up here, there was something that I wanted to ask you about actually. So I live in Colorado, and just kind of down the road from me in Boulder, Colorado, is an institution that is currently doing studies with DMT. And what they're doing is they're actually doing kind of an extension of Rick Strassman's work back in the 80s, where they're doing extended IV drip DMT. And because it doesn't have a subjective tolerance, unlike other molecules, they can theoretically keep these individuals in this space for potentially an indefinite amount of time. So I was just curious if you could speak to, you obviously mentioned the ayahuasca, but I was just curious, what is your perspective on it seems like it's all kind of tied together, part and parcel of the same thing, but what is your perspective on these experiences that people have with psychedelics? And do you think that that might be something that could, just like meditation experiences, create that internal knowing of this reality for individuals? Do you think that's something that could be the case with psychedelics as well?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I would love to get to a point where I can achieve in meditation what I can, or what I've been lucky enough to experience on psychedelics. And
Right.
I've gotten some good stuff on meditation. I'm not going to say as the total no go, but I've had some pretty cool stuff on psychedelics. Some amazing spiritual encounters, including my healing.
Right.
The ayahuasca ceremony that I went to that ultimately led to my UFO experience a month later when I was perfectly sober. My Jesus ayahuasca UFO. Go check out my full presentation on that if you want all the details. It's a cool story. So in various other experiences, I believe that if we come into this world, if our spirits come into this world from outside, as my research seems to indicate, and some of my experiences seem to indicate, then our brain is a filter, and it's filtering out some of what we're connected to beyond. And with psychedelics, I believe you can alter that filter,
Right.
and so you may be able to connect to more stuff than you could. Obviously, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Okay. Okay. So disclaimer. Okay. Now, ayahuasca is amazing. It's, I don't want to reduce it in any way. I don't understand it. I would love to understand it. Is ayahuasca a goddess? Mother Aya, grandmother, as a lot of people call it. Is it, more of a bridge that can connect you to the beyond, get you to the crossroads of the divine, and so you can have these experiences. I don't understand how it works, but it works. And a lot of people think that the reason why it works, or at least one of the important reasons, because I think there's multiple reasons, including the shamanic rituals and magic that the shamans are doing. But part of that is the DMT.
Right.
And to be able to have raw DMT, an extended state raw DMT experience for hours on end, that can just shoot you into those other dimensions. I would be very curious. I've done DMT 3 times. But I didn't get enough to have a breakout or breakthrough experience. And I'm trying to get some of the vaping stuff. If I can get
Right.
some of the vaping stuff, it'll be easier. The problem is my only source for that is a bulk source.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get a smaller supplier, or get enough people in with me to get this stuff in bulk.
Well,
Theoretically,
we can talk off
hypothetically,
the air about that. Yeah.
okay,
I have
okay.
some
I get,
thoughts.
oh,
Yeah.
and but yeah, have you? What are your experiences, or do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I want to be open about those experiences because I think that they've brought me to the point that I am with being interested in these things. I was actually able to acquire some of that vaping DMT, as you mentioned, and I did kind of experience, breaking through some sort of a membrane, ultimately into, I don't know if you've ever seen a Nova Science video where they're showing you the inside of a cell. But I was an electron inside of the cell, and I was basically watching the mitochondria's pump, and I was watching these, like chloroplasts taking in sunlight, just really kind of trippy stuff, right? But at the end of the day, that showed me for the first time in a real material fashion that there is something beyond my physical everyday experience, like what we're having right now. And so ever since then, I've just been fascinated ultimately by this topic. And I would mention too, there's a gentleman who's in London, I believe. He's actually the one who's doing the research that I mentioned. The research is called DMTX, and that's an organization that's doing this research. I actually called them to see because they're down the road if I could become a participant, but it takes like 3 years to get certified for that.
What?
So I'll call me in 3 years and we'll see what's up. But there's a book called Alien Information Theory, where the author, as I mentioned, the guy who's running these studies, he tries to break down from almost a mathematical perspective of how this molecule's interaction, because he's a neurobiologist, this molecule's interaction with the brain actually allows information on different levels. You can think of us as like being on a Rubik's Cube, and we're only on one level of the Rubik's Cube. But our brains, theoretically, with this molecule's interaction, are actually able to interface with those other levels of the Rubik's Cube. So alien information theory really kind of catalyzed a lot of my perspective on this space.
Fascinating.
Yes,
I will say that in the last time I did DMT, that I was able to see the gateway.
right,
I was able to. I saw this, maybe the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It was this mosaic of colors, in the near distance. It wasn't far away. It felt like 50 feet away. This
right,
beautiful mosaic of colors, and golds and reds and greens, and it was
yeah,
just the loveliest thing I've ever seen. And I think that that was the entrance to the fractal realm or whatever that
right.
would have taken me somewhere. But I didn't get enough to go in.
Yeah, it's it's something that can't really be put together with words very well, but I do understand what you're describing, sir. That is fascinating. I know that I'm going to be continuing to kind of dig into this as well, and so I just want to encourage you to do the same. But I do want to respect your time. We're at 7 o'clock now, and so I'm just going to go ahead and just give people the opportunity. Could you tell them where they might be able to find more information about you or how they can get in touch with you down the line?
Sure, well, just go to my YouTube channel, Cosmic Road, where I talk about UFOs and the paranormal and stuff. I'd love to see you there.
Right on. That is Jack Connor, Cosmic Road. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you so much, James.
All right.